We're going to look into the mirror and analyze the neurobiological hijacking of the understimulated ego and the specific sociological triggers that make destruction the only viable path for the unfinished man in 2026. This is not about policy. It is about the neurobiology of a failing sense of self. The first phase of the shift from point A to point B is externalisation. According to the scapegoat mechanism, defined by philosopher René Girard, individuals experiencing internal mimetic tension, the frustration of being invisible in a competitive society, do not seek self-improvement. They seek a target. By projecting internal chaos into a high-profile other, the subject achieves unearned catharsis. In clinical terms, the political enemy is a psychological gift. They provide a container for the subject's own unresolved feelings of insignificance. The enemy is not a threat to be managed. They are a necessity for the subject's emotional personal regulation. In 2026, the attention economy, quotes, operates as a validation market. The platform requires time on site. Its creator requires views, and the subject requires confirmation supply. To maintain engagement, content creators must engage in sensationalist escalation. Thumbnails. Shock and awe of content equals views. Each cycle must be more threatening than the last to trigger the same dopamine response in the user. The subject is not an unwitting victim. They are a consumer shopping for justified anger. This symbiosis ensures that the subject's baseline for reality is perpetually shifted towards conflict. The algorithm is simply a mirror of the subject's existing hunger to find their villain. Forensic profiles of political radicals reveal a consistent meaning deficit. This is the failure to achieve self-actualization through traditional markers, tangible craft, community integration, or family legacy. We refer to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So when the higher levels of the hierarchy are empty, the ego becomes fragile and desperate for a status, a sense of self. And by desperately trying to chase this significance, they are attempting to jump to the top of Maslow's hierarchy while their actual life is a hollow wreck. They're trapped in a delusion where this political victory liking feels like some sort of self-actualization. But the foundation, unbeknownst to them, of their real world, the only thing which would actually bring it, is missing entirely. And the entire structure itself is fake. And it was simply a feed, a machine. And the human creators behind that content just dishing them up the shit that they were asking for. The confirmation bias that they wanted, people delivered for them. And on and on and on it went. While that person is now dead, locked up, there's people now tucking into their food tonight that built the very stuff that that person consumed. Because the solution is always been the same, even pre-internet. What we consume is what we become, right? What we are is what we eat. The person out there right now creating that thumbnail for their political opinion to grab that person's attention for a click is not innocent in the creation of these people. The lifestyle radical is a person attempting to solve their own private internal problem of insignificance with a public display of defiance. And the transition from passive observer to active radical is accelerated by a phenomenon of recursive reinforcement. And these social media feeds are literally designed to do that. We could call this a circle of doom. It is a closed-loop psychological trap. The more the subject engage with the specific conflict, the more the environment reinforces that the conflict is the only thing happening in the world. Sociologist Ellie Palser calls this the filter bubble. It's a state where the algorithm effectively deletes any evidence that contradicts the subject's growing internal rage. This is compounded by the availability heuristic, a cognitive bias where the subject judges the importance of a global issue solely by how it appears on their screen. How else do individuals end up standing in a street corner on a rain-slick city, holding a banner for a geopolitical conflict in a land they have never even visited, involving a history where they have never even studied? This is identity fusion. They aren't protesting reality, they are protesting their feed. To them, the feed is the world. They have been conditioned to believe that a curated digital stream is a primary source of reality. And the more they share that, and the more people like the fact that they're sharing that, the more it confirms their bias. And themselves are getting some new sense of self. Now, the dark reality and the conflicting part in this video is that they are not there to save a distant population. They are there to validate the hours they spent staring at the screen. And here is something we can all visualize. When we see a person sharing some sort of a political stance, some sort of a cause with that touch of anger, what we can do is we can see behind that, and we can see that that person that you might even know, they only got to the point of that post through sitting on a sofa on their own, scrolling through for hours of this content. That is their life. That is almost their cry for help. A core driver, maybe the core driver of modern violence, modern political violence, is proximal radicalisation. This is the adoption of high-intensity emotional states regarding events for which the subject has no first-hand data. The subject engages in digital virtue signaling, receiving immediate neurochemical rewards for liking or sharing borderline, politically violent content. The call to arms. This creates a delusion of agency. The subject believes they are a soldier in a global struggle based on a 15-second short. They are using the real-world suffering of distant populations as a costume to match their own lack of impact in their immediate physical environment. History from the 19th century anarchists to the political assassins of the late 20th century, the profile is the same. A man who feels like a nobody, attempting to become a somebody through a singular act of destruction. In 2026, the call to arms is not a revolution. It is a symptom of a society where individuals have lost the ability to be quietly significant in their own personal lives. The enemy on the screen is a mask worn to avoid the mirror. The feed only serves what the hunger demands. For these people who are simply unhappy, looking for the excuse, the enemy on the screen is a mask worn to avoid the mirror. Digital saturation has rendered the on-screen hit insufficient, forcing an escalation from passive consumption to physical enactment. They believe that the fantasy now will require a real-world victim to achieve the same neurochemical reward. And the truth behind it all is, at this point, for that person, it is no longer about the political argument they had in the first place.